Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. They were everywhere, from the eerily identical mailboxes to the way every lawn looked like it had been measured with a laser level. But when you're desperate for a fresh start, it's amazing what red flags can look like welcome banners. I'm Alex Chen, 42, former corporate attorney turned tech consultant. After losing my wife Sarah to an aggressive form of cancer last year, my daughter Lily and I needed to escape the ghost-filled halls of our old house. Every room held memories that were becoming too heavy to carry. When I found the listing for 1442 Maple Drive in Evergreen Estates, it seemed like the universe was finally cutting us a break. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a fenced backyard for the dog we might get someday, and most importantly, within walking distance of one of the best schools in the district. The price was surprisingly reasonable, especially for such a well-maintained neighborhood. The realtor, Sandra Wellington, couldn't stop gushing about the tight-knit community and impeccable standards. And the HOA fees are only $275 a month, she added, glossing over the thick stack of documents she handed me. My sister Barbara runs it. She keeps everything absolutely perfect. I should have noticed how the other residents tensed up at the mention of Barbara's name. Moving day started smoothly enough. The sun was shining, the neighbors seemed friendly, and Lily was actually smiling for the first time in months as she planned out her new room. Then came the clicking of designer heels on our freshly poured concrete driveway. Barbara Wellington looked exactly like what you'd get if you asked A to generate an HOA Karen. Perfectly styled blonde bob, luxury athleisure, wear that had never seen a drop of sweat, and an iPad in a monogrammed case clutched like a weapon. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to Evergreen Estates, Mr. Chen," she said, extending a French manicured hand. "I have your welcome packet here. All 47 pages require initial and signature." Before I could even reach for the papers, she was already tapping at her iPad. "I notice your moving truck has been parked for 8 hours and 37 minutes. Section 5.3 clearly states an 8-hour maximum for commercial vehicles. That'll be a $150 fine." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "Also," she continued, "your house numbers appear to be brushed nickel. Section 7.2 specifies polished nickel only. You'll need to replace those within 72 hours. And that doormat," she actually shuddered, "burgundy is not an approved color. Forest green only." I started to protest, but she held up one manicured hand. "Rules are rules, Mr. Chen. Welcome to paradise." As she click-clacked away, I noticed our next-door neighbor watching from behind his regulation forest green curtains. When our eyes met, he quickly disappeared. That should have been my second warning sign. In Evergreen Estates, nobody wanted to be noticed by Barbara Wellington. I was about to find out why. The next 3 months were an education in creative tyranny. Barbara's compliance inspections became the stuff of neighborhood legend, though no one dared speak about them above a whisper. Every day brought new and increasingly absurd violations, each one meticulously documented on her ever-present iPad. Week 1. I received a $200 fine because my grass was 2.3 inches tall. The HOA regulations specified a maximum height of 2 inches, and Barbara actually carried a digital measuring tool to check. When I pointed out that this seemed excessive, she smiled that cold smile and added a $50 administrative fee for questioning HOA authority. Week 2. My bird feeder attracted excessive avian activity. I wish I was making this up. The violation notice included timestamps of when more than 3 birds were present simultaneously, complete with photographs. Another $350 fine, plus a requirement to submit a bird activity management plan for board approval. But it wasn't just me. I started noticing a pattern in how Barbara operated. Every Thursday, like clockwork, she'd make her rounds in her pristine white Tesla, apparently the only approved color for electric vehicles, iPad in hand, documenting violations with the enthusiasm of a trophy hunter. The Johnson family got hit with a $500 fine for having wind chimes that exceeded the approved decibel level. Mrs. Patterson, a 75-year-old widow, was cited for unauthorized vegetation when her granddaughter planted sunflowers in her garden. The Thompsons received a violation notice because their Christmas lights were too festive. Then came the situation with Lily's medical equipment. My daughter has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a connective tissue disorder that affects her mobility. On bad days, she needs a mobility scooter to get around. The constant wearing of her joint braces at night prompted Barbara to issue a noise violation warning. Medical necessity doesn't override community standards. She informed me primly when I tried to explain. Perhaps you should consider a more suitable neighborhood for your situation. That's when I bought the golf cart. It was a small electric model, barely larger than a mobility scooter, perfect for helping Lily get around the neighborhood on her bad days. I even painted it forest green to match Barbara's beloved color scheme. The day after we got it, I found Barbara measuring its dimensions with her digital ruler, a gleam in her eye that would have made a shark uncomfortable. I knew what was coming, but I didn't expect the sheer scale of her response. That afternoon, every homeowner received an emergency HOA bulletin about the growing recreational vehicle crisis in our community. Barbara had somehow transformed one small mobility aid into an existential threat to property values. The bulletin included a dozen photos of my golf cart, each labeled with alleged violations, and a new set of emergency regulations specifically targeting unauthorized transportation devices. As I watched Lily's face fall when she realized her independence was once again under threat, something in me hardened. I'd been playing nice, trying to work within the system, but Barbara had just made a crucial mistake. She'd forgotten to check what kind of lawyer I used to be. The monthly HOA meeting was held in the community center, a building that perfectly embodied Barbara's vision of evergreen estates, sterile, beige, and aggressively inoffensive. I arrived early, armed with medical documentation and a thorough knowledge of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Barbara sat at the head of the folding table like it was a throne, flanked by her loyal board members, Ted from accounting, who never met a fine he didn't like, and Susan from 2 streets over, who owed her position to reporting more violations than anyone else. Item 1 on tonight's agenda, Barbara announced, tapping her iPad with flourish, unauthorized vehicles in the community. She pulled up a PowerPoint presentation titled The Death of Property Values, a golf cart story. For the next 20 minutes, she presented a detailed analysis of how my forest green golf cart would supposedly destroy home values, attract undesirable elements, and lead to what she called recreational vehicle proliferation. She had actual graphs showing projected property devaluation based on, I kid you not, golf cart visibility metrics. When she finished, I raised my hand. I'd like to present some information about medical necessity and Section 12.4, Barbara interrupted, clearly prohibits recreational vehicles of any kind. No exceptions. I pulled out my documentation. This isn't a recreational vehicle. It's a mobility aid for my disabled daughter, the ADA specifically. The ADA doesn't supersede HOA covenants, she declared, which was absolutely false but delivered with such confidence that several homeowners nodded along. Remove it within 48 hours or face a $200 daily fine. I tried reason. My daughter needs this to get around safely. Barbara's smile could have frozen hell. Not my problem. Rules are rules. Over the next week, I jumped through every hoop. Submitted a formal variance request. Denied within hours. Gathered signatures from supportive neighbors. Barbara declared them invalid. Offered to modify the cart to meet any specifications. Rejected without review. Filed an ADA compliance complaint. Barbara claimed it got lost in the mail. Then came the notices. Daily fines for unauthorized vehicle storage. Citations for creating a visual nuisance. Even a warning about excessive ingress and egress, because Lily used the cart to visit her friend 3 houses down. But Barbara's real masterstroke came during the next board meeting. She introduced a new bylaw specifically prohibiting any wheeled conveyance not explicitly approved in the original 1997 covenants. It passed unanimously, with only my dissenting vote noted. As I left that meeting, I overheard Barbara on her phone. Yes, we'll need a tow truck. Something that can handle unusual vehicles. No need to wait for owner notification. The new bylaw is already in effect. That night, I moved the golf cart into my garage and installed a security camera. Barbara had just shown her hand. She wasn't just enforcing rules. She was making them up to target specific residents. Game on, Barbara. Let's see how well those designer heels work when the ground starts shifting under them. Barbara's campaign of harassment entered its shock and awe phase on a Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. I woke to the sound of a tow truck's beeping backup alarm, rushed to my window, and watched in disbelief as my car was being hauled away from my own driveway. The violation notice, already tucked under my doormat, cited improper parking angle as the reason. According to a newly amended bylaw, vehicles had to be parked at precisely 90 degrees to the garage door, with a maximum deviation of 0.5 degrees. My car was allegedly at 91.2 degrees. Cost to retrieve it from the impound lot: $400, non-negotiable. That was just the opening salvo. What followed was a masterclass in bureaucratic warfare. 7:00 a.m. daily inspections of my property, complete with photos and measurements. Violation notices for imaginary infractions. Excessive morning dew accumulation on lawn. Non-standard mail retrieval timing. Improper cloud shadows on driveway. Unauthorized wind direction over property. But I wasn't the only target. As Barbara's power grew, so did her reach. The stories started flowing in from other residents. The Williams family received a $1,000 fine for installing a wheelchair ramp for their elderly mother. Barbara declared it architecturally inconsistent and demanded its removal. When they cited ADA requirements, she added a $500 legal consultation fee to their account. Mrs. Rodriguez, a widow who lived in the community for 20 years, found herself threatened with foreclosure. Her crime: planting unauthorized rose bushes that her late husband had given her. Barbara's solution: using her sister's landscaping company to remove them, at Mrs. Rodriguez's expense. The Papal family faced daily citations for excessive cooking odors that disturbed community harmony. Barbara installed air quality monitors near their house and sent violation notices every time they cooked dinner. Even the local elementary school's crossing guard got a cease and desist letter for using an unapproved hand signaling method within HOA boundaries. The pattern became clear. Barbara wasn't just enforcing rules, she was breaking people. Every fine, every violation, every petty restriction was designed to either force compliance or force people out. Those who left often sold at a loss, usually to Barbara's sister's real estate company. Then came the psychological warfare. My security cameras caught Barbara's inspection team measuring my garage door at 3 a.m. She started sending violation notices to Lily's name instead of mine, knowing they distressed my daughter. The fines grew increasingly astronomical. $750 for improper rain drainage patterns, $1,200 for excessive solar reflection from windows, $2,000 for unauthorized wildlife attraction. A squirrel had crossed my yard. By month's end, I'd accumulated $13,450 in fines, each more ridiculous than the last. Barbara made sure everyone knew about it too, posting the top violators list on the community bulletin board. But her real mistake wasn't the harassment. It wasn't even the illegal fines. Her fatal error was assuming that because I'd left corporate law, I'd forgotten how to fight back. She was about to learn otherwise. Tuesday morning, 7:15 a.m., I was helping Lily get ready for school, her joints particularly painful after a rainy night, when I heard the unmistakable sound of a drill working on metal. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Then came the mechanical whir of a tow truck's winch. Looking out our front window, I froze. Barbara Wellington, resplendent in her Lululemon finest, was supervising as two men drilled through my garage door lock. A tow truck idled in the driveway, its ramps already deployed. They were going after the golf cart. "Stop!" I shouted, running outside in my pajamas. "This is breaking and entering. You can't just." Section 8.3. Barbara interrupted, not even looking up from her iPad, gives the board authority to remove unauthorized vehicles from community property. She held up a document. Your garage is technically community property according to the original development plans. That's insane. You can't. We can and we are. Her smile was pure venom. Oh, and your total fines are now $13,450. The board has authority to initiate foreclosure proceedings for unpaid violations. Imagine how that would affect your daughter's condition. Something in me snapped, not in a rage-filled way. I'd dealt with enough corporate sharks to know that anger only clouds judgment. No, this was different. This was cold, crystalline clarity. I watched them winch out the golf cart, Lily's only means of independent mobility. Watched Barbara photograph it from multiple angles, presumably for her next PowerPoint presentation. Watched her strut around my driveway like she owned it, which according to her creative interpretation of property law, she apparently thought she did. You really shouldn't have done this, I said quietly. Barbara finally really looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face, but it passed quickly. Shouldn't have done what? Enforced the rules, protected property values, done my job. She gestured to the tow truck driver to continue loading the cart. Face it, Mr. Chen, you're out of options. As they drove away with my daughter's mobility aid, I heard Lily crying softly from her bedroom window. That sound crystallized everything. Every petty violation, every fake fine, every moment of harassment condensed into a single point of absolute resolve. I went inside and made 2 calls. 1, to Lily's school, explaining she'd need to study from home today too, to my old law firm, reactivating my access to their legal research databases. Barbara thought I was out of options. She was about to learn that she'd just given me the only option I needed, nothing left to lose. I opened my laptop and created a new folder titled HOA Investigation. Time to show Barbara what a corporate attorney with forensic accounting experience could really do. The game was about to change. Remember how I mentioned I was a corporate attorney? What I didn't mention was my specialization, forensic accounting and regulatory compliance. For 7 years, I dug through financial records hunting for corporate fraud. Barbara Wellington was about to discover that her HOA kingdom wasn't nearly as secure as she thought. I started with the basics. Public records requests for every document related to Evergreen Estates HOA, articles of incorporation, tax filings, board meeting minutes, financial statements, all of it. What I found in just the first hour made me sit up straight. The HOA's articles of incorporation had expired 2 years ago. Barbara had forgotten to file the renewal. Every fine, every rule, every action taken in the past 2 years was technically invalid. But that was just the appetizer. Diving deeper, I discovered a web of shell companies, all leading back to Barbara. Wellington Property Services, LLC, Evergreen Maintenance Solutions Incorporated, Community Standards Consulting Group, Premium Lawn Care Enterprises. Each company had won exclusive contracts with the HOA, all awarded without competitive bidding. Every time Barbara issued a violation, one of her companies got the repair contract. Cited for non-compliant paint, Wellington Property Services had the exclusive painting contract. Dead grass. Premium Lawn Care was the only approved vendor. The financial records were a masterpiece of creative accounting. $17,000 for office supplies from Gussie. $25,000 for community outreach events that never happened. $50,000 for emergency tree removal on streets with no trees. $100,000 for a reserve study conducted by, surprise, another Wellington shell company. But the real smoking gun came from cross-referencing foreclosure records with her sister's real estate transactions. Barbara had systematically targeted homeowners who opposed her. 1. Issue impossible fines. 2. Deny payment plans. 3. Initiate foreclosure. 4. Have her sister's company buy the property at auction. 5. Flip it for massive profit. The evidence trail was gorgeous. Emails proving coordination between Barbara and her sister. Bank records showing kickbacks disguised as consulting fees. Board minutes where Barbara unilaterally changed voting procedures. proof that the last 3 board elections were fraudulent. I worked for 3 days straight building an airtight case, everything documented, everything backed up, everything verified through multiple sources. By the end, I had 147 pages of financial analysis, 283 pages of supporting documentation, 57 potential criminal violations, evidence of roughly $1.2 million in embezzled funds. But the piece de resistance, Barbara's own emails, obtained through a public records request she hadn't properly redacted, smoking guns everywhere. These people need to learn their place. Who cares if it's legal? Nobody reads the bylaws anyway. Just double the fine until they break. I compiled everything into a report so detailed it would make an IRS auditor weep with joy. Then I made copies, lots of copies. Barbara had spent years building her house of cards. Time to introduce a hurricane. Friday evening, 7:00 p.m. The emergency HOA meeting Barbara had called to address the growing recreational vehicle crisis was standing room only. I arrived early, set up my laptop, and connected to the projector. Then I waited. Barbara strutted in 15 minutes late, already talking about someone's unapproved bird feeder. She stopped cold when she saw me at the podium. "Mr. Chen, this is a closed board meeting." Actually, I interrupted. According to State Code 47.215, HOA meetings must be open to all members when discussing financial matters. I smiled, and we have some fascinating financial matters to discuss. I don't know what you think. Before we begin, I continued, clicking to my first slide. I've prepared a presentation on HOA financial transparency. Let's start with the Articles of Incorporation. What followed was the most satisfying 2 hours of my life. With methodical precision, I laid out every illegal action, every fraudulent charge, every abuse of power. The room got quieter and quieter as I went through my evidence. Here's an invoice for $17,000 in office supplies from Gussie. I wasn't aware they made staplers, Barbara. This email chain shows you coordinating with your sister to target homeowners for foreclosure. That's real estate fraud, by the way. And here's my personal favorite, your shell company charging $50,000 for emergency tree removal on Oak Street. An impressive feat, considering Oak Street has no trees. Barbara tried to shut me down multiple times, but the other homeowners wouldn't let her. Years of petty tyranny had come home to roost. "This is slander," she finally shrieked. "I'll sue you for defamation." "Please do," I replied calmly. "Discovery would be fascinating. Speaking of which," I held up my phone, showing the active recording app. "I've documented everything you've said tonight, including your threat to initiate illegal foreclosure proceedings against me on Tuesday." That's when Ted from accounting stood up. I moved for an immediate audit of all HOA finances. Seconded came a chorus of voices. Barbara's face went from red to white. "You can't. I won't allow. This meeting is adjourned." "Actually," I said, "according to the bylaws you failed to renew 2 years ago, you don't have that authority anymore. But don't worry, I've already taken some initiative." I started distributing copies of my report, along with some special additions. A complaint filed with the State Attorney General. Documentation sent to the FBI's White Collar Crime Division. A class action lawsuit prepared by my old firm. Evidence submitted to the local news. The aftermath was better than anything I could have scripted. By the end of that Friday night meeting, Barbara had resigned, screaming about ingrates and property values as she stormed out. 3 board members had resigned to spend more time with their families. An emergency interim board was elected on the spot. Every fine from the past 2 years was invalidated. My golf cart was ordered to be returned immediately. But that was just the beginning. Monday morning brought the FBI's White Collar Crime Unit, who seemed particularly interested in Barbara's creative accounting. They spent 6 hours removing documents from her house while she watched from her driveway, still in her designer yoga wear, clutching her iPad like a shield. Tuesday, the local news ran a special investigation. HOA corruption. The real cost of perfect lawns. They interviewed dozens of residents who'd been forced out of their homes through Barbara's foreclosure scheme. Her sister's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. Wednesday, the state attorney general's office announced a formal investigation into HOA fraud. Turns out Barbara's management style had caught their attention before, but they never had enough evidence to move forward, until now. Thursday brought the sweetest victory of all. Remember how Barbara claimed my garage was community property to justify stealing the golf cart? Well, a title search revealed something hilarious. Her own house had been purchased with embezzled HOA funds, laundered through one of her shell companies. The new board immediately initiated eviction proceedings. I watched from my front porch as Barbara loaded her designer bags into a moving van, her perfect blonde bob slightly disheveled, her Lululemon outfit replaced with actual workout clothes. Lily sat beside me in her newly returned golf cart, both of us enjoying lemonade and the sweet taste of justice. "Dad," she asked, "did you know this would happen when we moved here?" I smiled, watching Barbara struggle with her gauchy luggage. Let's just say some people shouldn't start fights they can't finish. The changes in Evergreen Estates have been dramatic. The new HOA board, democratically elected, meets monthly to actually serve the community. All mobility aids are automatically approved, no questions asked. Color restrictions have been relaxed, though forest green is now suspiciously unpopular. Fines require documented violations and a review process. My bird feeder attracts as many birds as it wants. Barbara's facing 5 years for embezzlement, with additional charges pending. Her sister's real estate empire is under federal investigation. And that golf cart? It's now officially listed in the HOA guidelines as Exhibit A, Approved Mobility Devices. Last week, I received a letter from Mrs. Rodriguez. She's replanting her rose garden. And this time, she's adding every color of the rainbow. The Pavels host weekly neighborhood dinners, filling the air with the most amazing cooking aromas. The Williams family's wheelchair ramp has been upgraded and improved, funded by recovered HOA fees. Sometimes justice comes from knowing the rules better than the people who have used them. Sometimes it comes from standing up to petty tyrants who forget that power has limits. And sometimes, just sometimes, it comes in the form of a forest green golf cart, driven by a teenage girl with a medical condition, whose father happened to know a thing or two about corporate law. As for me, I've been elected to the new HOA board. My platform was simple: no more Karens. It passed unanimously. #the end.